contract for $84 million. And within a few months, the body starts breaking down from the inside. Plus, the scandal surrounding his championship team, which was investigated for years. And the shot in 1999 that made millions of people jump off their couches, a moment that went down in league history forever. How did a player who lost his main career weapon due to one injury become part of one of the most famous episodes in playoff history? Watch until the end, you'll find out. If, like me, you enjoy looking back at the great NBA legends of past decades, and you're interested in their true stories and little-known facts that are rarely talked about, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps the channel grow and makes it possible to bring you more videos like this. Thank you. Now, let's continue. Larry Johnson stepped onto the court for only 11 seasons. But in those 11 years, he managed to become a college champion, the holder of the most expensive contract in NBA history at the time, the author of one of the most famous shots in playoff history, and a man whose body literally betrayed him at the very moment his career should have been taking off. Today, we will break down how a kid from a poor Texas neighborhood made it to the NBA Finals, what a single back injury did to him, and why even people who have never cared about basketball know the nickname Grandmama. Watch until the end. There will be the moment that made millions of fans jump off their couches in 1999, and it was that moment that changed his fate forever. Larry Demetrius Johnson was born in March 1969 in Dallas, Texas. The family was poor. There was no father around, and his mother raised him while working multiple jobs at the same time to feed her children. The neighborhood where Larry grew up was far from peaceful. The streets dictated their own laws, and many boys from there simply had no chance to escape. Basketball became not just a hobby, but a way to survive and prove that life could take a different path. Already at Skyline High School, he stood out among his peers with a powerful build, incredible strength for his height, and a tough mentality on the court. Coaches quickly realized this was not just a talented teenager, but a future fighter with a rare combination of physique and willpower. But the road to the top turned out to be not as straight as one might have hoped. After high school, Johnson did not immediately land in a top program. First came Odessa College, a junior college in West Texas, where talented but not yet big-time ready players gathered. It was there that he honed his skills until he caught the attention of one of the most charismatic and controversial coaches in college basketball, Jerry Tarkanian, who led the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Tarkanian built his team not according to textbooks, but on principles of aggression, speed, and physical dominance. Johnson fit that philosophy perfectly. The move to UNLV was not just a step up in level. It was a ticket to the most explosive and talked-about college team of the late 80s. The Runnin' Rebels under Tarkanian played at such a pace that opponents physically could not keep up. Alongside players like Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony, Larry Johnson became the team's main offensive force. In the 1989-90 season, UNLV rolled through the tournament with virtually no equal, and in the NCAA final, they literally demolished Duke 103-73, a margin that is still considered one of the largest in final history. Johnson was named college basketball's Player of the Year. The future could not have seemed more cloudless. But behind the scenes of that triumph, problems were already beginning to pile up. The UNLV program was haunted for years by rumors of recruiting violations and ties to questionable figures, and those stories would catch up with the team long after Larry Johnson left campus. By that time, he was already looking in another direction, toward where real money and real fame were decided. In 1991, the NBA draft saw the Charlotte Hornets, a young, recently established franchise, select Johnson with the first overall pick. Expectations were enormous, and he met them almost immediately. In his rookie season, he showed such scoring and physical dominance around the rim that he confidently took home Rookie of the Year honors. Athletic, Explosive and incredibly strong for his height, the forward became the face of a young franchise and one of the league's most recognizable figures. Charlotte fans literally fell in love with this undersized but indestructible player who fought for every rebound as if his life depended on it. That was how the entire league remembered him, until one contract that was supposed to be a reward for years of struggle, but turned into the beginning of a completely different story. In 1993, the Charlotte Hornets signed Larry Johnson to a 12-year, $84 million contract, at the time the largest deal in NBA history. For a kid who grew up without a penny to his name, this was not just a number. It was proof that the climb had been worth it. He became a star, the face of the franchise, and a hero in commercial spots. But literally that same season, troubling symptoms began to appear. A constant dull pain in his lower back, which was initially written off as normal game fatigue. No one paid much attention to it at the time. Doctors spoke of ordinary strain, and coaches advised more rest between games. But the pain did not go away. It only got worse. It turned out that Johnson was developing a serious spinal problem, a herniated disc, an injury that was essentially a death sentence for a player with his style of play. His success was built on sharp jumps, physical battles under the basket, and constant collisions with taller opponents. All of this placed enormous strain on his back, and at some point, his body simply gave out. Surgery and a long rehabilitation kept him out for months. When he returned to the court, he was a different basketball player. The explosive power that made defenders across the league fear him began to fade. Now he had to compensate for his physical losses with intelligence, positional play, and accurate mid-range shooting. Things that had once been mere supplements to his athleticism, but now became his primary weapons. This was the tragedy of a man who lost his main advantage right when he was beginning to reap the rewards of years of labor. Charlotte's management, looking at the changed player and the massive contract, started looking for a way out. And in 1996, they made a decision that many fans perceived as betrayal. Larry Johnson was traded. His new home became New York, the New York Knicks. It was here, far from Charlotte, that the second life of his career began. He could no longer play the way he had in his best college and early pro years, but he found a new role, a veteran, crafty, immensely tenacious forward who relied on grit and brains rather than pure strength alone. At the same time, a character appeared on television screens across the country that made him famous even among people far removed from basketball. In Converse commercials, Johnson appeared as a feisty elderly woman nicknamed Grandmama, a grandmother who on the court gave no ground to younger opponents in either attitude or skill. This character became a true cultural phenomenon of the 90s, and the nickname stuck to Johnson himself for the rest of his career. The irony of fate. A sports injury took away his physical power, but it was in New York, playing a completely different role, that he came closest to the brightest moment of his career. That moment came in the spring of 1999 in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Indiana Pacers. The Knicks were in a grueling series, and in the decisive game, with the team desperately needing points, Larry Johnson caught the ball in the corner under tight defense. He shot a three-pointer, made it, and at the moment of the shot, the defender committed a foul. The officials called a free throw, and Johnson calmly sank it, making the sequence worth 4 points in one go. This shot, which went down in league history as the 4-point play, became one of the most famous moments in NBA playoff history and effectively decided the outcome of the entire series in New York's favor. The arena erupted, commentators shouted on live television, and millions of viewers across the country replayed the clip over and over. The Knicks, seeded 8th in the Eastern Conference, a completely unprecedented case at the time, advanced to the NBA Finals. The finals against the San Antonio Spurs proved difficult. The Spurs, led by Tim Duncan and David Robinson, were the stronger team, and New York lost the series. But the very fact that an 8th seed had reached the finals remained a unique page in NBA history, and Larry Johnson was forever etched into it as one of the main heroes of that run. Behind the scenes of that triumph, however, lay a bitter truth. His back, which had already failed him once, continued to deteriorate. Every game at that level took more and more of a toll on a body that already had little left to give. Progressive spinal degeneration ultimately forced Johnson to retire in 2001, much earlier than his talent and ambition would have allowed. He was only 32, an age when many forwards are just reaching the peak of their basketball wisdom. But his body could no longer withstand the demands of professional basketball. It was a quiet but truly heavy drama of an athlete who, in mind and spirit, was still ready to fight on the court, yet physically could not take a single step without risking his health. He did not leave to thunderous applause at the height of his powers, but gradually, acknowledging what even the strongest will cannot fight. After his playing career ended, Larry Johnson, like many stars of his generation, faced the question that eventually arises for every professional athlete. Who are you when the spotlight fades and the stands no longer chant your name? For many former players, this transition becomes far more difficult than any on-court injury. The familiar rhythm of life disappears, and along with it goes the clear sense of self-worth. Johnson found his place in another part of the basketball world. He remained connected to the New York Knicks organization, working in the club's scouting and administrative departments, helping to find and evaluate new talent from the other side of the floor. That, too, is somehow symbolic. A man whose playing career was cut short by physical wear and tear continued his path in basketball, where value lies not in leaping ability, but in experience and an understanding of the game from the inside. Today, decades later, Larry Johnson's name is remembered not for the number of titles or the stat lines. His legacy is a story of character. A kid from a poor Dallas neighborhood who fought his way into a top college program, became the #1 draft pick, signed the biggest contract of his time, lost his main weapon to a devastating injury, and still found the strength to reinvent himself, giving the league one of the most spectacular moments in playoff history. The nickname Grandmama has long become part of basketball folklore, and that 4-point shot against the Indiana Pacers is still rewatched whenever lists of the greatest moments in NBA history are compiled. This is not a story about a flawless career without a single crack. This is a story about how even a person once broken can give fans a moment that will outlive decades. If you enjoyed this story, links to other videos on the channel about the fates of NBA players from the 70s, 80s, and 90s will now appear on your screen. There you will find stories no less powerful and sometimes far more tragic about people who paid an exorbitant price for basketball glory. Click and watch. We have many more such stories.